In this video, we'll talk about Form I-944, Declaration of Self-Sufficiency. This is a new form that is going to be required by all applicants who are applying for adjustment of status after February 24, 2020. And this is based on the new public charge rule that became effective this year. Now, this is a new form. We have not seen anything like that before. It's almost 18 pages long. It has questions about a person's financial information, family, age, health, different things that need to be inputted there. And the government is going to require certain applicants to mandatorily use that form, and some will be required based on a case-by-case basis. So it's really important to understand how that form works, how to complete it, what to be aware of. And in this video, we're going to go through the form. We'll go almost line by line through the form. We'll show you some of the new things, what you have to be aware of, and how to stay away from the things that can trick you. It's also important to know that there's also new versions of forms for 45 and any other different things that are coming with the adjustment of status after the 24th of February. So make sure you only use the most up-to-date version of forms, right? Very good. So at the end of the video, you'll be able to post your comments in the questions below. Let us know any questions you have. We'll try to answer all your comments, and also you can also contact us with any questions if you need help with your case. My email address is right there. You can also call our office. Our phone number is in the description of the video, and also should be listed right here. So what are we waiting for? Let's go and watch the video.
Hello, today we are here to go through Form I-944. This is a new form. It's called the Declaration of Self-Sufficiency. And this form is supposed to be used by anyone who is filing for adjustment of status, or AOS, as some people know it. They would be filing, or you would be filing, on Form I-485. And as of February 24th, you are required to use the new forms. There is a new I-485 form that will take you through the exemption. So there are people who are exempt from filing this form. This form is to demonstrate that you are not inadmissible based on a public charge ground. So if you are found to not be exempt, then you will have to complete the Form I-944. The instructions for Form I-944 go through the details of who is exempt. So just to cover some of the basic exemptions, if you are a VAWA self-petitioner, those are people filing under the Violence Against Women Act, or a special immigrant juvenile, a Cuban, Afghan, or Iraqi national, an asylee, a refugee, or victim of a crime, or a victim of trafficking, then you are exempt and do not have to file the Form I-944. There are other exemptions, and so you want to look at the instructions. If you go through Form I-485, on Form I-485, on page 14, they will start listing the exemptions, and if you fall under one of those exemptions, you will not have to complete the I-944. So for those of you who do have to complete the form, if you're not exempt, then we'll start going through the form now. The basic on page 1, it is basic information with your name, your address, your alien registration number if you have one, and date of birth and your location of birth, your country of nationality or citizenship. On page 2, you're going to, and by the way, here on this form, you are the applicant for the adjustment of status, and so you are also the person who will be completing this application. So this information, a lot of the information is about you and your household members. So on page 2, part 2, we go into listing your household members. So you need to provide information about each household member and how they are related to you. And by the way, you also need to provide evidence of how they are related to you, and that would be anything such as a birth certificate or a marriage certificate. So you're going to list this here. For example, if you are the applicant and you are the beneficiary of a petition, then your petitioner would also go on here, and your petitioner would be your household member if you are living with that person. There are children who file for their parents, and there are parents who file for their children, and they may not necessarily be living in the same household. So this is only for members of the household and as reported on your tax return. So, for example, if you are the spouse of a U.S. citizen, you're filing for adjustment of status, you have to file an I-944, and your spouse, the petitioner, would list the number of dependents that he has in the household. So if he or she has no other dependents other than you, then this won't be a difficult form for you to complete. It gets more complicated if your petitioner spouse or your petitioner child or parent does not earn enough money to support you and to keep you from becoming a public charge. So on page 2 in number 1, you are going to list yourself as the first person of the household. So you will put your information there, and then you will list the other people that are part of your household. You might want to put the petitioner as the next family member, and then any children that may be in the household or parents that may be in the household, you would list them next. If the information does not fit on this page, then you want to add the information at the end of the form. There is a page to add at the end of the form, or you can also add the information on a blank sheet of paper and attach that to your application. You do want to list the total number of household members. So if it's only you and your U.S. citizen spouse, then it's 2 total. Again, if there are any children or parents, you want to list them there. On part 3, it's asking for your and your household members' assets, resources, and financial status. So on this page, you want to, again, list yourself first. And if you are the foreigner, you may not have filed a federal tax return because you were not authorized to work. And so you can fill out this information, and you could put down that you were not required to file a tax return, but you do want to add an explanation down here where it says explanation for not filing. If you were on an E2 visa, or you were on an F1 visa where you were on OPT, or you were on some other type of work visa like an H1B or an O1, and you did file a tax return, then you want to put that information in here. So you want to list yourself first, and then you're going to list your household member. So in this case, if you're filing through marriage and your spouse is a U.S. citizen, you would list your U.S. citizen spouse here. And hopefully your U.S. citizen spouse did file a tax return and filed for the latest year. Now, you don't have to file until the due date. So right now we are currently in the year 2020. You would be filing 2019 by April 15th, 2020. If you file after April 15th, then you have to have the most current year, or you have to show that you filed an extension, and you have to have evidence that you filed the extension. You still need to provide information on the I-864 for the 3 most current years. So you want to put an explanation here if you did not file a tax return. So on part 3, it continues with the same type of information, but then it goes on to new questions, and these questions are for both you and your household member. Does any of your income come from any of the income from your or your household member's federal tax return come from illegal activity, such as illegal gambling or illegal drug sales? Hopefully all of you answer no there, but if you should answer yes, you're going to have to enter an amount that comes from the illegal activity. I don't know who would do that, but they do ask you to be honest. So, and the next question is, does any of the income from your or your household member's federal tax return come from public benefits? This is a really important question, because if you received public benefits, you're going to have to answer yes. And there is a list in the instructions of what is considered public benefits. So anything that you had prior to April 15th does not count. So, and it actually should be from February 24th, but we haven't gotten clarification. So to be on the safe side, October 15th. So the new process is as of February 24th. To be on the safe side, you want to make sure that you haven't had any benefits prior to that date. And if you have not, then you can answer no. But if you have, then if any of your income comes, then you're going to have to put the amount of income that came from public benefits. Most people are not able to get public benefits if they don't have a green card. So I would say that, you probably didn't have those, except maybe emergency medical expenses, and emergency medical expenses would not count. So you want to enter the name of the recipient who received the public benefit. So if it was your spouse, you do have to put your spouse. And if your spouse is still receiving public benefits, you are going to have to put that information in there. So it's not just about you, it is also about your spouse, because it's asking for you and your household members. So you will enter that information here. You will also want to answer if they're going to continue to receive public benefits in the future, and what amount, up until when will they be receiving those public benefits. So this continues on it gives you the opportunity to put in all of your members. So some of your children may be receiving public benefits, then you would also have to list those. So then it goes on to ask about your and your household members' assets, resources, and financial status. So if your spouse, your U.S. citizen spouse or petitioner, could be your child or your parent, is not earning enough money, then you may be able to add your assets and resources in there, and your members, your household members' assets and resources, to be able to meet the public charge, to not be inadmissible under the public charge rule. So this is where you have an opportunity to list any property, stocks and bonds, savings accounts, and the cash value. And in the instructions, it will tell you what the requirements are. So you do need to meet the poverty guidelines as mentioned in the I-864, and that's the affidavit of support. And you do want to follow those poverty guidelines. The instructions for the I-864 and also the instructions for the I-944 will tell you how much of these assets can be counted towards the poverty guidelines and the public charge rule. Of course, they also want you to list your liabilities and/or debts. So if you are a new immigrant and you don't have a social security number and you don't have credit, then you may not have any liabilities. So in this next question, it says, provide a list of your liabilities and/or your debts in the table below. So this is only for the applicant. It's not asking about your household members, such as your petitioner, or spouse or parent or child. It's asking about you only. The same thing goes for the credit report. So you may or may not have debts here because you probably didn't have a social security number and you didn't work, and so you weren't able to get credit, so you may not have any of those. But if you do want to list those here. The credit report, if you don't have a social security number, you may not have a credit report. And so it is asking, do you have a U.S. credit report? And if you answer yes, then you need to provide a new credit report that was pulled within the last 12 months. If you answer no, then you need to provide a letter from the credit reporting agency stating that you don't have a credit record or score. So they would pull your name, and the only way that they can figure it out is if you have a social security number and your name tied to that social security number. So again, people who are here on H-1Bs, on E-2s, on F-1s, you may have a credit report and you may have a social security number that you used, and you will have to list that. So it's asking if you have a credit score. So if you do have a credit score, you need to enter the score and again attach the credit report to this form. If you have negative credit history or a low credit score in the United States and it's reflected on your credit report, then you need to provide an explanation here. So if you look into the instructions, they do give you guidance on what constitutes a negative credit history. So you want to look at the instructions. This is a form that really you want to keep the instructions right beside you while you're completing the form, because otherwise you can complete some of it incorrectly and maybe even give yourself put the wrong information in there that would hurt you rather than help you. So make sure you read the instructions carefully. It's asking if you've ever filed for bankruptcy in the United States or in a foreign country. So people are allowed to file for bankruptcy in foreign countries. And if you ever filed for bankruptcy, you need to answer this question as honestly as you can. Finally, it comes to the health insurance. Do you currently have health insurance? And if you have health insurance, great. You are going to have to provide evidence of having your health insurance. And if you don't have health insurance, oh, by the way, if you do have health insurance, they want to know if you receive a premium tax credit or advanced premium tax credit under the Affordable Care Act for health insurance. So the Affordable Care Act is called different things in different states, but it's all part of the Obamacare. And in California, they call it Covered California. And so if you receive credit through that, then you're going to need to answer that question. So you will also need to answer the total deductible or annual premium information that in there. And if you terminated the insurance because it was under the Affordable Care Act, then they're going to want to know if it was terminated or the date that it has to be renewed. So they will ask you if you have enrolled or will soon enroll in health insurance, but you don't have it yet. And so if you answer yes, I am enrolled, they will want to see evidence. If you say I will soon enroll, again, they will want to see evidence. They'll want to see a letter from the insurance carrier saying that they will soon enroll you in the insurance. And otherwise your answer is no, that you're not enrolled. You will have to provide some kind of explanation down here as to how you are going to cover your medical cost or expenses. What are your plans for insurance or covering the cost? Then we get down to public benefits, and this is where a lot of people are concerned because some people have received some type of public benefit, and some benefits that were not on the list previously are now considered to be a public charge. So some people, for example, before were living with a spouse who had Section 8 housing assistance. That is now considered a public charge. So you want to look at this list and answer carefully. Have you ever received or are currently certified to receive in the future any of the following public benefits. So if you have received them, then you need to check which ones they were. And this includes any federal, state, local, or tribal cash assistance for income maintenance, any SSI. This is not the same as your Social Security check that you would receive after a specific age. This is SSI income, that is additional income that is given for people who are needy. Temporary assistance for needy families, that includes food stamps and any type of program that can also be federally funded, and any general assistance, whether it's cash or other type of assistance. It also includes SNAP. It used to be called food stamps, and now it's called SNAP. And Section 8 housing assistance under the Housing Choice Voucher Program. Section 8 project-based rental assistance, including moderate rehabilitation. Public housing under the Housing Act of 1937. So public housing would be like housing projects where it's income-based, and I believe that almost every city is required to have some type of public housing that they can provide to low-income families, so you have to be really careful. Federally funded Medicaid. And if you have not received any public benefits, great. You can check no, I have not received any public benefits, and no, I am not certified to receive any in the future. Have you disenrolled, withdrawn from, or requested to be disenrolled from public benefits? If you have, then you want to answer that question yes, and when you disenrolled, and hopefully it was before this took place, before February 24th. So here in part 3, we will continue, and it's asking for your and your household members' assets, resources, and financial status. It's continued in here, and it says if you selected one or more of the public benefits, and item 16, please provide information about the public benefit. So you will need to provide more detailed information, the type of benefit, the agency you received it from, and the date the coverage started, when it'll expire, and the amount received. So they give you all that information there. There are additional questions. If you answered yes to number 16, saying yes, I received some public benefits, these are questions that are related to the exemptions. So if you answered yes, they want you to answer these questions. So I am enlisted in the U.S. Armed Forces, or I'm serving active duty, or in the Ready Reserve. I am the spouse or the child of an individual who is enlisted in the U.S. Armed Forces. Or at the time I received public benefits, I or my spouse or parent was enlisted in the U.S. Armed Forces. At the time I received public benefits, I was present in the United States in the status exempt from public charge ground of inadmissibility. Or at the time I received public benefits, I was present in the United States after being granted a waiver from the public charge ground of admissibility. Or I am a child of a U.S. citizen whose lawful admission for permanent residence and subsequent residence in the legal and physical custody of my U.S. citizen parent will result in my automatically acquiring U.S. citizenship. So if you fall, there are additional questions here, and if you check off any of those questions, then you may not have any issues with the public benefits charge. So have you received, applied for, or have you been certified to receive federally funded Medicaid in connection with any of the following? And that would mean an emergency medical condition. So you are allowed to receive benefits for a medical condition. So again, these have to do with some of the exemptions. If you go back and look at the instructions, it will go through some of the exemptions, and even on the form I-485, it will list some of these exemptions. And these questions here fall, these boxes here that you may or may not check fall into that category. So they want you to provide the dates that you received it, and have you ever applied for any of the following public benefits and the application is currently pending or was denied. So you want to answer that question. If you answered yes to any of these, you're going to need to check which ones you have a pending application for, And if you applied and were denied, you want to check the boxes for the ones you were denied. So this continues with the public benefits again. It's asking the date that you applied for the listed public benefits. Did you withdraw your application? Have you applied or received a fee waiver for any immigration benefit? This is a whole separate thing. So some people will file a petition or for adjustment of status and will receive a fee waiver. And now they want to know if you've ever received a fee waiver, because they give the fee waivers to people because of low income or their inability to pay the fee. So you will have to list that information along with the receipt numbers, the dates, and the type of immigrant petition or benefit. So if you might fall into that that gray area of maybe being inadmissible, one of the things that they can consider is your ability to work and support yourself. So one of the first questions that's here under education and skills, it really has to do with the I-140 alien worker. And so there are people that have filed for labor certification and then have filed, and their employers have filed a petition for them based on their abilities and based on a labor certification. This could also people such as people of extraordinary ability, people who fall under the national interest waiver. They have an I-140 that may be approved, and so they can skip this part. Because they don't have to do this part. So for those of you who don't fall under that category, then you want to provide information about your education, your occupational skills, anything that really can show that you have the ability, the education and the work history to show that you can support yourself in case that they feel that you might become a public charge. So you want to list the programs, the schools that you went to, the type of study that you had when you started, whether or not you got a certificate or a degree, and how many hours of study you were able to complete. So that is all going to be listed under education and skills. And they do ask, if you have any occupational skills, and if you do, they want you to list those occupational skills. If you have a certification or a license in that skill, for example, if you're an electrician and you're licensed to be an electrician, or some other type of nurse, and you're certified, you have a certified license to be a nurse, then you would list that information here, including the license number, the expiration dates, etc. Finally, under education and skills, they also ask about your language skills, and obviously if your English is good and you speak other languages, then you're going to have a much better opportunity than people who don't speak English. And so if you do speak another language, you want to enter that information here. If you took any courses or you're certified in the language, then you want to enter that information. Obviously not everyone is certified, but it is good that you have the skill. If you're retired, it's asking, are you currently retired? And if you're retired, since when have you been retired? And then finally, it will ask if you are the primary caregiver who is over the age of 18 for a child or an elderly, ill, or disabled individual who is in your household. They will take that into consideration. Then you're going to really be near the end in part 5, and you want to read the penalties section. So there are penalties if they find that you committed fraud or misrepresentation. So you want to read the penalties. You want to make sure that you provided the information as truthfully as possible. And if you are not able to read and understand English, hopefully you had a capable interpreter that helped you through this, and the interpreter should be completing a section of this as well and should be signing this document. You're going to sign this, and this is a document that can get you into trouble. This is a document, a legal document, so you want to make sure that all of the information that you provide is as truthful as possible, and that you know what you're signing when you sign it. So once you sign this, your interpreter is also going to sign it, and the person who helped you prepare the form will also sign this. And that's pretty much the I-944. And again, I must reiterate that you should keep the instructions right beside you as you're completing this form, because for the first time, it can be a little complicated. And there are many, many questions to answer.